Thank you. Christina Richey will be presenting this update. However, Moses Milazzo is watching on the Ustream right now, and he is actively monitoring the Google spreadsheet. So we're both here to help out. Thank you so much for having us. And
could you get closer to your microphone? You're a little distant and tinny.
Yep, is it close enough?
Much better.
Okay, great. We'll just hold the phone to my face the whole time. Let's go ahead and do the next slide, please. So we were established actually during the August 2019 OPAG meeting. So a year ago, just a little over a year ago, this grew out of an Outer Planets Assessment Group meeting. It was expanded shortly after it was established because it was noticeable that this type of an effort needs to be across all of the different AGs that are out there. We were charged with creating an organized structure to provide and disseminate recommendations, resources, and findings that are associated with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility issues to the larger AG steering committees and also to the greater planetary science community. Go ahead and go to the next slide, but I'm going to note that the steering committee of this working group actually has 2 members from each of the different AG steering committees, and you can see them listed here, as well as membership from the Division for Planetary Sciences Professional Culture and Climate Subcommittee. And we also have a social scientist expert on the steering committee, Janet Bertessi. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. The big thing that we have been working on since really the winter OPAG meeting, but shortly even before that, is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility white papers for the upcoming State of the Profession deadline of the NASM Decadal Survey. So I will note that this effort has been massively impacted by COVID-19. When they first brought out the deadline of July 4th, and we were in the middle of the pandemic, many folks had basically dropped off of the working group committee's efforts right at that moment to focus on science papers. So we were very grateful when the deadline was shifted for State of the Profession papers to September 15th, 2020. However, we still recognize that many of our colleagues are not able to fully participate in white paper building efforts because they are doing things like having to navigate working virtually at home while simultaneously taking care of children, or having sick family members who have been struck by COVID-19 themselves, or now having to teach classrooms in environments they're not familiar with, meaning virtually, and trying to mentor students and other persons within the community when they're so far away. So we're still impacted even though we've pushed forward. We have pushed forward to the point where we have developed a spreadsheet of over 20 white papers that are now prepared for submission to the State of the Profession panel on September 15th. And we are looking for co-signatures from individuals and endorsements from the AGs for 20 plus, it's going to be about 25 white papers at this spreadsheet that's listed there. I was not able to actually put the spreadsheet into these slides because these slides were due to you all a week ago, right? And we are rapidly working on this topic. But what I will say is if you go to that link, you're able to see the title, the lead corresponding author, and their affiliation and email for each of these papers, a summary of the paper, and then a direct link to the actual papers themselves. These folks are looking for endorsements. We're hoping to have those co-signatures and endorsements before September 11th so that folks have enough time to be able to submit to the September 15th deadline. And I would just like to quickly say thank you so much to each and every single one of the lead and co-authors of these white papers. Many of you have been working through weekends and on what limited time you have available in your spare volunteer time, because that's where the diversity work gets done in order to make these state of the profession papers happen. And I'm extremely proud to bring forward to all of the AGs and to the entire community you all's papers to make sure they get co-signatures. I know that both Lori Glaze and some of the folks from NASM, including the chairs, have stated that co-signatures and endorsements are not necessarily important for white papers. However, I will note that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility white papers are new to the state of the profession and new to really the decadal survey this year for the Planetary Science Division. The astrophysics decadal surveys have done this twice before, but this is really new to the Planetary Science decadal. And I know that there are critics out there who say that maybe this is not the thing we should be emphasizing right now. But I think if not now, then when? Now is the perfect time for us to be discussing DEIA initiatives and efforts and how they will impact our community for the next 10 years. So thank you to everybody who's pushed forward with this. If you can go ahead and go to my next slide. I'll also note that for the Division for Planetary Sciences Conference, which is October 26th through the 30th, being held virtually, there will be a session for workforce issues. The details are still being finalized, but several of the papers that are on that Google spreadsheet were also submitted as abstracts to be presented there. And I'm going to note that I've actually submitted an abstract for the EDI working group of the Planetary Science Division AGs so that we can talk about the efforts we've done and we can amplify each of those white papers. I intend to put the finalized versions, links of those white papers there so that you all can read, you can get to know these authors who are leading experts in this field and work with them. So with that, I will gladly take any questions.
All right, we're open for questions. Google Docs monitors, questions for Christina?
Hi there. There aren't any questions on this topic yet, but a reminder, anyone who wants to ask a question, look at the OPAG meeting website and scroll down to this session. There's a separate document for each session and put your questions there. Thank you. No questions at this time.
Well, Christina, do you want to further summarize what are in the principal white papers?
Sorry, what was that?
Would you like to further summarize what are in the
Yes.
white papers thus far?
So in the white papers thus far is a combination of as many really diversity, equity, and inclusion topics we could cover. Actually, as you're showing the slides, if you could show the one before this, that would be great. So they include things like looking at demographics from the recent Division for Planetary Sciences demographic study and looking at who we're missing in the planetary science workforce right now. And they provide recommendations for increasing the number of people that are currently missing. There are white papers on codes of conduct, on workplace climate surveys. Let's see, we have one that's focused on LGBTQ issues within planetary science. The recent Preventing Harassment in Science workshop, we have a summary and recommendations of the best practices that came from that. There is also several papers that are looking at how we can collaborate with the Indigenous community and how we can ensure that we are working to create inclusive and safe workplaces for marginalized communities. There is a white paper focused on mental health in planetary science. And there's another one that's focused on the value of the dual anonymous system for reducing biases in reviews and in journal articles. So we cover a broad range of topics in these currently 21 papers that are on there, but I can tell you too that there are several papers that are in their finalized edits right now and will be added to this either this weekend or early next week. So I recommend you start looking at these now. I know 21 papers is a lot of papers to read and endorse, but you know, this is an important topic that is critical for the next 10 years of this field, and look forward to the other papers that will be added to this early next week.
Christina, I guess all those papers are now open for people to co-sign, right?
Correct. If you go to the links that are there, they will show the paper, and on the first page of almost every paper, there is a place where you can either click a link to fill out the endorsement form, or there's a way that is listed on there for you to contact the primary author to add your endorsement. So we also have the contact information for each primary lead corresponding author there.
Okay, great. So you did have your workshop. Can you tell us briefly what some of the results from the workshop was?
From the planetary harassment workshop that
Yes,
occurred?
ma'am.
Okay, yes. I was not actually one of the main organizers for that workshop. I was one of the folks who was on one of the town hall discussions for that workshop. I can tell you that there was many recommendations that occurred, and there's no way that I can fully summarize those here. But there is a fantastic list of recommendations that can be used to take steps to reduce harassment within the white paper, which is sitting literally in row 17 of that table right now.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
We have
Do
a
we have any
question.
questions? We have time for one question before we go on to Henry's presentation.
Thanks. A question from Jennifer Scully, JPL. What other things can the decadal survey do to increase diverse viewpoints while conducting the survey during COVID, in addition to pushing back the deadline to September 15th?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Jennifer. Thank you for that. What I will note is that we actually have some recommendations built into white papers for helping the Planetary Decadal Survey Committee come up with strategies for increasing diverse viewpoints, but they should be looking to see not only what is being sent to them, but whether or not they have the right diverse membership to make recommendations based off of the community's wants and needs. And if they don't have that membership on the panel, they should be working to bring those experts in to speak with them. And so some of the white papers actually really are focusing on making sure we get the names of those experts to the committee panels so that they're able to actually bring people in and have them to speak with them. Noam Eisenberg actually did a paper too as well on what science is missing due to COVID-19. There was a lot of topics that people were working for, trying to get out to the decadal survey in terms of white papers, and they had to drop those white papers due to COVID-19. I really hope that the decadal survey committee will look at Noam's paper and take seriously trying to bring those folks in to at least discuss briefly with them what their ideas were.